The Biden White House attempting to blame former President Trump after national test results show the pandemic erased 2 decades of progress in math and reading. But these headlines tell a different story because you'll remember Trump wanted schools to reopen. Here to react is co-author of Black Eye for America, How Critical Race Theory is Burning Down the House, Dr. Carol Swain, and superintendent of Partnership Schools, a network of 9 urban Catholic schools, Kathleen Porter Maggie. Welcome to both of you. Dr. Swain, I'll start with you. Not only do we have these headlines, but I distinctly remember ads being run against President Trump saying he was irresponsible and putting children's lives in danger because he kept insisting throughout that summer of 2020 that schools needed to open in the fall. I mean, how insulting to our intelligence is this?
Well, I mean, the Democrats, they have no problem lying to the American people. They think we have short memories. And we look back at President Trump and what he tried to do during COVID. He had to work with Dr. Fauci, Dr. Birx, and people who were clearly Democrats who gave him bad advice. And we know that the Democrats own the problem when it comes to our children. They have been so active pushing, their woke agenda. They have not been educating the children. They don't care about the children. They use minority children, children that are stuck in the public schools as pawns. They want more money through the teachers' unions for less work.
Yeah. Great points. Kathleen, you represent Catholic schools, which were such a lifeline for parents during the pandemic. And again, just to further make the point, the unions and Democrats were lobbying to shut down private Catholic schools throughout the pandemic because they were afraid that Catholic schools would prove that they were lying, that, they said children would die, that you couldn't be done safely. And Catholic schools proved that it could be done.
That's absolutely right. I mean, it's amazing actually to see how much the conversation has changed. I remember in fall 2020, fully 92% of Catholic schools across the country were opening for in-person instruction at the time when only 43% of traditional public schools and even 34% of charter schools were opening. And it was a scary time. The unions were staging protests saying that reopening schools was tantamount to murder. And at the time, we already knew that there were ways that we could keep our children and our communities safe. And we also knew very, very clearly that children, they faced the lowest risk from COVID, and they face the greatest risk from a prolonged school shutdown. So it's amazing to see now us sort of changing the narrative or forgetting what the facts on the ground were at the moment when so many Catholic schools, so many private schools were doing yeoman's effort to serve communities and to serve students.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think parents are going to buy this. I mean, it's their kids, it's their treasures. They know what happened during that period of time. Carol, it is important to hold those people accountable so that this doesn't happen again. I mean, another pandemic could come our way and they could try and shut it down, even with the science proving that children, as in this case, weren't susceptible to COVID and could have done this safely. But I want to understand the why, because parents intuitively knew, Republicans intuitively knew that this would hurt children. Long term, we're seeing these statistics, but I think we're going to see a lot more. We know it caused suicide and depression, made kids fatter because child obesity went up. So why did they do it, Dr. Swain?
They did it because of politics, because they were trying to appease their leftist activist supporters. They don't care about our children. If they cared about our children, they would not be pushing the agendas that they push in public and private schools now. But we know that the children who were harmed the most were children from working class families, whether they were black, white, or Hispanic, and families where the parents could not supplement the education, parents who were trying to work, they either felt like or couldn't do homeschooling or couldn't do it well. Those are the ones who suffered. And we look at the mayor of Washington, D.C., how she's willing to punish students if they don't have the vaccination, despite all the science. They don't care about science. And the Congressional Black Caucus, the black leaders are being used by white progressives to push an agenda that's not in the interest of any Americans. It's not in the interest of educating our children. It's all about indoctrinating people, and they would not be able to get away with it if we did not in this country have a media that is owned by the government.
Yeah.
It just seems to me that all they want to do is push the false narrative that's coming out of Washington. I've never seen such lies from leaders.
Yeah. Well, our education system is essentially a cartel. And Kathleen, I'm going to give you the last word because I want you to brag on Catholic schools who did such a great job during the pandemic. But again, also speaking to school choice, which benefits Catholic schools and benefits parents to give them a choice in situations like this when the government wants to take control of how our children are educated.
Absolutely. I think if the past 2.5 years have showed us anything, it's that we absolutely need to empower parents with school choice everywhere. We need to make sure that it's not the government that's in the driver's seat. It's not, you're not relegated to your zip code school, but that you are armed with a voucher or a tax credit to make the best decision on behalf of your child. And we need to have a diverse ecosystem of schools, and we need to make sure that schools like Catholic schools flourish. And you're going to need school choice to do that.
Absolutely. Amen to school choice. Both of you have been great
Yes.
advocates for school choice. Dr. Swain, Kathleen, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.